Aloha, this is Jason from Hawaii. Welcome to a special edition of the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast. In this episode, I will be interviewing Garrett Gunn and Christy Blanch, or Dr. Christina Blanch. They are the writers. We are in for a treat today, guys. We are, They are the writers for the new limited series called Good Boy from Source Point Press. The first issue is out already in stores. Now, issue number 2 comes out on December 29th, and the previews code is OCT211758. Christy and Garrett, how are you guys doing today?
Amazing.
We're great.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you for having us. It's a blast to do these. We do these all the time. They never get old.
No, that's great. Okay, Garrett, I'm going to go over your comic book history. You did
fancy.
I'm sorry?
He's fancy.
Okay,
comic book history.
Yeah. He wrote Franklin and Ghost 2018 from Source Point Press, and it's also available on Comixology. And correct me if I'm wrong, it's in development now to be an animated series. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Starring Billy Bob Thornton, Sean Schemmel, Chris Sabat, and Veronica Taylor.
We're going to touch upon Billy Bob Thornton in a minute. You also wrote Go West, a 2018 book from Alterna Comics.
Mm-hmm.
The Box Master graphic novels from 2017. Again, that's from Source Point Press. Now, that was co-written by Billy Bob Thornton. It was you and Billy Bob Thornton. I want to hear, how did you team up with Billy Bob?
So I wrote a book, a concept for a book a few years ago. I mean, now it's not a few years ago now. Now it was like 6 years ago. That was called Hardcore Mega Metal. And it was going to be, I love like the old, like Marvel, like Power Records stuff,
Yeah.
Like come with a 45 and it's like this multiple like media experience. And so I was like, I want to do like this cool book that's about this band that like, it was like, there was all this like fantasy and sci-fi elements to it. And I was like, I'm going to get original music done and I'm going to like offer the book with music and all this shit. It was a terrible idea because I realized after the fact I'm a fucking idiot, and I couldn't afford to hire a fake band, pay for music to be written and made, any of that stuff. And I was like, oh man, that sucks. So I was telling a buddy of mine about the story, and I was like, oh man, like there was this comics, we were talking about comics and music and a bunch of stuff, and I was like, I had this thing I wanted to do and I couldn't do it. And he was like, why don't you just do it with a real band? And I was like, now my buddy is like, he's the audio engineer for a number of like super famous musicians. Okay. Rob Zombie, Korn, Cyndi Lauper, like tons of people. And I was like, well, Mark, I don't know bands like you. Like that's not a thing that I do. So he was like, who'd really like this is Billy. And I was like, Billy who? I was like, Billy Idol. He was like, no, Billy Bob Thornton. I was like, Billy Bob Thornton makes music? And he was like, yeah, he's got a rockabilly band called the Box Masters. They're really good. And I was like, what the fuck? Okay. So I went home and I listened to him and I was like, oh my God, this is so awesome. So I wrote a concept and I gave it to Mark, and Mark was like, I'll show it to Billy and see. And I was like, this is never going anywhere. And he texted me that night. He was like, Billy's going to call you tomorrow. He's got some thoughts. I went, what? That's not, okay, let's unpack all of that, because what? He's going to call me because he has some thoughts. Yeah, it was insane. So we had a phone call. He loved the idea. We went back and forth a couple times, and he basically was like, I gave him the story idea, and he was like, I just want you to run with it. So I wrote the whole story. And then when we got done with it, we did like a table read with the band. And then they were like, hey, we're going to be in Vegas doing this show. You should come to Vegas. And I was like, what the, like, I'm in California. Like, that's not, I can't just like jump in my car and drive to Vegas. Like, I'm not, like, it's not like I'm in LA. Like Billy's used to LA. And like LA is like an hour and a half, 2 hours from Vegas. Like, that's it. Like, I'm almost to Oregon. I'm like in the very far reaches of California. And So I'm like, but I don't want to tell Billy Bob Thornton I'm not going to come to Vegas.
Oh,
and
yeah.
come to the show.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, I totally will. Yeah, I'll see you there. So we went to this show. I watched him perform. We sat down afterwards, and like, he was like, his notes were like, yeah, I don't really like, I wouldn't like call this person by their name. I call everybody Bud, or I do this. And he had like these little really specific notes that he wanted me to use. So we added these things in, and they came to LA Comic-Con. We debuted the book. It was insane. We had hundreds of people in line waiting to get copies signed and all kinds of stuff. It's long since been sold out. And now we're working on a sequel.
Oh.
So yeah.
Oh.
Nobody even knows that. You're like the first person to know that. Yeah.
Well, but thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Garrett, I'm going to continue on. But thank you very much for that piece of information. Thank you. Okay, so you also did War Corns, a 2012 book from Source Point Press, and also another book from Source Point Press in 2020 called Cold Dead Hands.
Yes.
Did I miss anything? Anything?
Only like 48 other things.
Oh, okay.
No, I think I lost count like 6 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've done like 14 different series. I've got something like 32 books or something like that published. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's insane. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do War Corns.
Mm-hmm.
And I did Cold Dead Hands,
Mm-hmm.
Both of which were awesome.
Mm-hmm.
90% of my stuff is published by Source Point Press.
Yes.
I'm a firm believer that when you find people that let you make the things you want to make, how you want to make them, and support the way you want to do them, you just like, there's no point to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's basically who publishes all of my things.
All right, now, Christy, I'm going to go over your comic book history.
Much shorter.
Not for long.
Not for long.
All right. So now you are a writer, comic convention panel moderator, a teacher, and the owner of All Yak Comics in Muncie, Indiana. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did. Very good.
Thank you. All right. Now, you have taught an online course such as, correct me if I'm wrong, Gender Through Comics. That course had enrolled over 7,000 students.
Yep.
Was that over like a number of years, or just one course?
It was, so this was what they call a MOOC. They came to me, I developed this course called Gender Through Comic Books, and about halfway through they asked if I wanted to do a MOOC with it, and I was like, yeah, absolutely. And then I went home and looked up what that was, because I had no idea. So I was like, oh, it's a massive open online course. So Ball State decided to venture into this field, and this is kind of like their test. So I had to develop it for this course for online, and make sure that, people would have access to books. I worked with Comixology and made sure that things, and comic shops, so that you could, like a lot of comic shops that have the books that I use, like, here's your package. It's, $110 for all of them, something like that. But we didn't know how many people. Usually MOOCs, they were expecting about 500 people. And we made a little video for it, like a little ad, a little trailer. And they were like, who should we have narrate it? And I was like, well, let me see if Stan will. And they're like, Stan who? And I'm like, Stan Lee. And they're like, yeah, right. Okay, that's funny. And I was like, all right, well, hang on. And they're like thinking I'm full of crap, right? So like 20 minutes later, I was like, hey, can we get somebody over to Stan's office in the next, couple hours? Because he said he'll do it right away. And they were like, what? So they had a guy out in LA, and he ran over there and recorded it, almost had a heart attack. He was so excited, that he was dealing with Stan Lee, and he recorded it, and he told me, he goes, I changed a couple lines. And I'm like, you can change whatever you want. I don't care. So we did this little, online video, and we ended up, when it got to 7,000 people, we had to cap it because it was just me. And then I talked them into getting me an assistant to help, and she could help for 10 hours a week, which It's not a whole lot, especially when we had to transcribe all the interviews. We did live interviews with people like Brian K. Vaughan and Gail Simone and Scott Gimple and a bunch of people. So most of it was going through the interviews and transcribing. So there were a lot of people in it. We everywhere but Antarctica, and I was like, come on, what else do you guys have to do? But we had people from all over, and it was a great experience. I don't think I did anything else for that 6 weeks except sit at my computer and answer things. And the kids are like, can we eat? And I'm like, I don't care, whatever, do whatever. You're on your own. It's fend for yourself. Yeah. We had fend for yourself nights, and they're like, we don't have anything but some cheese and milk. And I'm like, there's your dairy intake. You're good. But it was really fun. And then we followed that one up with I did it kind of on my own, social issues through comics, and had people like Donnie Cates and people like that on it. So it's pretty cool.
That's very cool. It is. I'm going to continue on. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You, some of your works have also been included in some academic texts, correct?
Yes.
Such as graphic novels in the classroom and the comics of Joss Whedon.
Yeah. So when I was doing my doctorate, I have my advisor was always on me to get stuff published. So. I have a couple papers published in there, and someday my dissertation, I'll turn it into a book, but I'm busy writing other stuff, way more important right now, dogs killing people. So
I'm going off the cuff here, and I'm sorry, but how cool is it that we can live in a time, excuse me, I'm just trying to clear my throat, that like universities are accepting, comic book as a very serious medium.
Well, some do.
Okay.
When I started, they did not. And so when I decided to use Why the Last Man in my anthropology class to teach culture change, I didn't tell them. I didn't get it approved. I just put it in there.
Yeah.
And then about 3 weeks into it, somebody came in and they were like, hey, one of my students said that they're using this book in your class, a comic book. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, how'd that get approved? And I'm like, I just figured it was fine. What are they going to do? Dock me my 10 cents an hour they pay me, So I was like, yeah, I don't know. What's the question, and they were like, well, we're going to be keeping our eye on you. And I'm like, okay, good. And then they kept wondering how it's like my classes were always full. They had wait lists for all my classes. My attendance was it was great. People would come early. They would stay late. All of the papers they turned in, which was kind of backfired on me because, I had 80 people, which was the maximum that they could fit in the classroom. And so when they would do papers, it was a minimum of 3 pages, and it was an average of 8. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm like, it was just, I'm reading a lot about Why the Last Man, but yeah, it wasn't really something people accepted, and they didn't like it, and they're like, oh, that's the comic book one, and it was kind of funny. I did one of a parent came in to talk to me, and I was just like, your daughter's an adult,
Yeah.
we don't quite get this, but he wanted to have a meeting with me, and I'm like, fine. So he came in and he said, I want you to know that I was really against this when, this is assigned. But then my daughter told me to read it, and it was so great. And I understand why you were using it, and just like went on. And I was like, shoo, not that I cared, it's like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like, you can complain all you want.
They already hate me. What else?
But it was fun. And so, it's, some of the other instructors still weren't happy with it because it wasn't academic enough for them. And I'm like, you know what? You read some Grant Morrison or Alan Moore and tell me how much you understand of it. So, and then we used like Dr. Strange to teach magic, because in anthropology we have all these different topics. So I just used a lot, but I like to use popular culture in teaching because students then can realize that you don't have to learn in a box. You don't have to like go to a certain place to learn. You can learn anywhere at any time using anything. And I think that's really important. That I'm a big believer in lifelong education, and I don't like it that I graduated, I'm never going to learn anything again, and that's how a lot of people think. So yeah, I like to keep learning. Garrett saying me.
I'm the opposite.
Yeah. Except Garrett learns so much every day. Trust me. I teach him.
As much as I try not to. She forces it on me.
I do.
Yeah.
But Garrett's already so brilliant. He doesn't really need to know anymore.
Oh my God. Ridiculous.
All right. I'm gonna continue on. So Christy has also written, The Damnation of Charlie Wormwood, and has co-written Broken Gargoyles. Both are from Source Point Press. She is also a host of a comic sale on social media called What We Do in the Comic Shop. Yes. Now that was a feature in an Associated Press article that came out last year. It spoke about Christina shifting her business model to include online sales during the pandemic shutdown in 2020. But more importantly, and I'm going to quote this from the article, it kept the shop's community spirit alive, end quote, during those dark times. Did you want to add anything to that?
Oh, that was kind of crazy that we were in the Associated Press. It was like just supposed to be this little article, kind of like went big time. I never wanted to do online sales ever. It's just not something I was interested in. But when we had to shut down, it was like, okay, so we could either close our doors for good, or I can just sell online. So we started it. I'm a huge fan of What We Do in the Shadows. Yes. And so the movie is better than the TV show. I know, Garrett. The TV show.
I didn't say anything. I didn't say anything.
You were thinking it. I could see the
bubble.
I could see the thought bubble. Anyway, and so we named it What We Do in the Comic Shop. And Franco, my friend, and we co-own the New York Oh Yeah together. He made an awesome little logo, and it's just kind of taken off. It's fun, but it did it. People that didn't even want to buy anything would come on the show just because I'm just stupid. I just sing.
She sings. She pronounces things wrong. It's hilarious. I watch it literally while she's streaming. I listen to it while I'm working, just to have it on. Like I have a TV that I just run it on, and I just sit here and I'm just like, oh my God,
she's so weird.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I make dumb puns, and
it's so entertaining though.
But it's because I just don't care. It's like I am all out of. You know what? I'm going to curse before you do, Garrett. I
already cursed.
Oh, did you?
Already missed out. Yeah, that was like the first word out of my mouth. So,
well, okay, that's true. I'm just all out of fucks now. So I'm just like, you know what? We're going to have fun. It's the same approach I take to teaching. The one of the very first courses I took when I went to get my my master's, my teacher almost fell asleep during his lecture. I mean, it was so boring. I was like, how can you make archaeology boring? Archaeology is so exciting. And he's just up there. He used to fall asleep during the movies he'd show. I mean, we would sometimes throw things at him to see if we could jolt him awake, because we're adults. But it has to be fun. And I just don't want to go, hey, here's a book, here's a book, here's a book, here's a book. Because I got to stay awake during it too,
I can see it now. Yeah. Co-writer of Good Boy admits to assault during college years.
Oh yeah. But he wasn't awake to admit it. I mean, to see it. It was kind of funny. what? Oh, I don't even remember what I was talking about. But yeah, but we stayed there, and we still have the show going. We were doing 10 a day or 10 a week day. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was like,
10 a day. Oh my God.
It feels like it sometimes. We were doing 10 a day or 10 a week. Ugh. But now we're only doing four a week now. So it's a little easier to manage, but we're also open. So it's been entertaining. I'm very glad that we made it.
Mhm.
So, because I know some shops that didn't, and I'm very glad we did. Seems kind of stupid to say. I'm glad we closed,
Yeah, I know. I know. There are like 2 shops in Hawaii. Actually, three shops in the state of Hawaii that closed down during the pandemic.
One of my customers on the show is from Hawaii.
Yes.
Yeah, and he's awesome. He sent me a box of goodies when I just get this package, and it's got macadamia nuts, which are some of my favorite things. Oh my goodness, they were and these shortbread cookies. Oh my gosh.
Is that the Big Island candy cookies? The chocolate dip? Is that the one?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And then some tea, hibiscus tea. Oh my gosh, it was like so cool. I was just like, this is awesome. So yeah, but we have people in Singapore and Mexico and Canada and just from all over. So it's kind of cool. So, and we have a lot of local people. Our local people are still on there all the time. So it's just fun. People become friends on the show. I actually met a couple. I've met a couple of people from the show. One of them, Blair. His name's Blair St. Amand, and I always went, "Oh, you're fancy." I had to put my pinky up when I talked to you. And so I was at Baltimore, and I walked out of a panel, and I heard somebody say Dr. Blanch, and I looked over, and somebody was just standing there with their pinky up, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Blair!" So it was kind of cool.
That's great. Okay, I'm sorry, Christy. I'm going to continue because I'm going to try to get you guys. Try to get because I know you guys are busy.
No, it's good. It's good. Someone should corral us.
Okay, all right,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, now before we really get into the interview, I want to give a big shout out to Josh Warner of Source Point Press for arranging the interview. So, Josh, thank you.
Josh is the hardest working man in comics, I tell you.
Yep. Gary Reed.
Award winner.
Reed Award winner.
Yes.
Joshua Warner. Yep.
And man, Winchester House is so good.
It is.
Oh, that second second issue is really good. So
okay, I gotta check that one out. The second issue.
Yes.
Let's see. Also, to Christy, I want to give you a big thank you very much for giving me a preview copy of Good Boy. Thank you.
Oh, of course.
Thank you very much. And like I said, before we continue on, I want to give the listeners, if you guys get a chance, please check out the Word Bros episode 124 podcast that was dated June 20th, 2021. Garrett and Christy were promoting the Good Boy Kickstarter at that time. I love that episode because you can tell they have an awesome friendship, that Garrett and Christy have an awesome friendship, because, they're on it. They're not only promoting, the Kickstarter, but they're just having so much fun. That's what I loved about the episode. You guys were just having so much fun.
Yeah.
It's the greatest part of getting to writing Good Boy was that I get to write with my best friend. So it doesn't even feel like work when I work with Garrett because he's just one of the most wonderful people on the planet. Mm-hmm. So
it's really working on that book is just 90% of the work is done just from us hanging out. Mm-hmm. And talking because that's all we talk about is the books we work on and stuff. So it's really when it comes time to actually write something, it's very easy because it's we've already talked about this 400 times. So this is, we know exactly what we're doing. Yeah. I'm gonna start jumping into stuff because that's a very good segue, Garrett. Excuse me. Can you guys tell?
So proud.
Can you tell the listeners how you guys met?
I hate this story. So I knew Christy online for a while. I just knew her as the owner of Aya Comics, and I knew that she wrote stuff for Sourcepoint and whatever. And she was like this big fancy moderator who like knew all the celebrities. We were at a show. We were at Motor City Comic Con. And I saw Christy talking to Travis, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go introduce myself. Because this is the person I haven't met in real life before. So I went to the show, or I went and talked to her, and they were talking about John Wick, John Wick. And I was standing there for a second, and then they asked me something, and I said, oh, I've never seen John Wick. And Christy just was like, it was like, stop talking, go back to the table. You can be in this conversation after you've seen the movie. And I was just like, ha! And then she just stared at me. And then I was like, oh, fuck. And I just walked away, like with my tail between my legs. And I went home, immediately watched John Wick, and then messaged her and was like, oh my God, it's so good, and this and that. But yeah, the first time we met, she was a real bitch to me.
Yeah, okay. But then after that.
But she made up for it because then
I had brought you a Hellboy toy.
She did bring me a Hellboy toy. It was a very nice thing to do. Yeah. It was kind of offset by the rudeness. But then afterwards, she took me to meet Doug Jones, who plays Abe Sapien, and Billy Butcherson, like all these people. He's incredible. Pan's Labyrinth and so many things.
What we do in the shadows.
Well, yeah, he's the Baron or whatever. Yeah, so then I forgave her. But yeah, our relationship is founded on rudeness, built on a foundation of bitchiness. Yeah, it's really awful. Yeah, it's a real honeymoon story. People are like, oh my God, you guys are such good friends. How did you meet? And I'm like, well, she was a bitch and I hadn't seen a movie. That's it. Yeah. And now I love her to death, but she's still kind of a fucker. So, but I'm okay with it.
Feelings mutual.
It's true. 100%. Yeah. Yep. She started it though. Just so we're clear all the way back.
I did.
She started it. Yeah.
Everybody thinks I'm the nice one.
Yeah, it's such bullshit. She is so mean. And she has everyone fooled, and everybody's like, oh, Christy is just the best. And I'm like, you don't see it. I see it. We talk on the phone, and she's like, oh, fuck this, and this person, and this, and you idiot. And I'm like, oh, God.
That sounds exactly like one of our conversations.
True.
Yeah, it's like verbatim.
And I'm like, yeah, you're right. They suck.
Yeah.
All right, so off the cuff, so Christy, can you still be part of my interview? Because I'm going to tell you this story.
She's a very kind person. We'll edit all this out.
I've never seen the full movie of John Wick, but I've seen bits and pieces where I can bitch it together where I've seen the whole movie.
Get him, Christy.
It's okay. I don't understand, but you need to watch it, not for us, but for you, because it is a masterpiece. It is a movie that should not work.
Yes.
That's why I said I hadn't watched it. I was like, when I see this movie, it has all the ingredients of being an awful movie.
Yes.
Awful. Like, no offense to Keanu, but I don't think he's the best actor.
Nobody does.
But the thing is, that's the point. That's the best part of it.
Yes.
Because he says like 4 lines in the entire movie. He just looks awesome, and he's really good at like fight choreography and everything. Like, he's just a presence.
Everybody's been asking me if I'm.
Yeah, I think it.
And I haven't really had an.
Yeah, but that's it. That's the emotional range of him in that entire movie. Like, he's talks like 3 lines, and then he yells, "I'm thinking I'm back." That's it.
Thinking I'm back.
Yeah.
No,
Oh,
it's like he's
good.
so cool, but the thing is, he's so cool when he comes off that city bus with his brown leather jacket. He's got bloodstain on his white T-shirt. Nobody stops him, and he just walks to his buddy's auto shop.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
Such a great scene, man. Oh, I love that entire movie.
Yeah.
So much.
No, but like I said, I've seen like chunks of it, and like I said, I just need to sit down and watch it in one time.
Do yourself a favor, because it's really, really, it's great.
I will say I'm happy that I didn't see it initially, because I enjoyed being able to just watch 1, 2, 3. Like, it was so much better to just be like, oh, I bought the 3, the trilogy on iTunes, and I could just watch through all 3 movies. It was so much more of like an event to say.
I'm good. No, yeah, I can't get into the second one yet. I've only watched like the opening scene, and then that's it.
You have to watch the one all the way through.
Yes.
You can fast forward through the dog scene.
Yeah.
So, because that's
yes.
So the Willem Dafoe scene is also really hard for me.
Oh yes, I know where he's. Yeah.
Oh, so but then just start to. It's so good.
It's so
I love it so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's ridiculous. I'm also glad you didn't see it, because if you had, we may not have come up. Be here right now.
Yeah.
All right, so this is going to be a nice segue going into Good Boy. Now, before we start getting to the questions about Good Boy, now I just want to let our new listeners and our longtime listeners know that this was an FOC spec pick by Drew on the Comics for Fun and Profit podcast, episode 681. So I just wanted to let our listeners know about that. So, no, actually, thank Drew. Yes.
Thank Drew.
All right. So I'm going to ask you guys, what is the story about?
Do you want to?
Well, the story is pretty much our love letter to John Wick. The first volume, anyway. Well, all of it is, but it's basically it's a John Wick story, but the human dies, and then the dog goes out for revenge. It's obviously anthropomorphic. It's an anthropomorphic world, which is taken care of in one panel. Every question that you have about it is taken care of, which that was Garrett being very brilliant right there in that panel. It was so good, Garrett. It was so good. And so he just goes out for revenge. And so we tried to make it, though, if you've seen John Wick, you'll go, oh my gosh, this is great. It's this and this. You can pick out the little things where we did. But if you haven't seen John Wick, then you can read this and still get it. Now, I do have to say, one of my friends hadn't seen John Wick. I didn't realize it. They've read Good Boy, and now they want to see John Wick because of Good Boy.
You're welcome,
like,
Keanu.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I was like.
We're doing your work for you.
You're welcome. We're getting you your fans. It's okay,
It really started. It started as a fun homage, and then sort of like turned into an entire other thing where we were like, because one of the best and worst things about the John Wick movies is that they're very face value. Like, and that's why they're so good, because they don't try to like do all this other stuff. They're like, he done bad, he good guy, he kill everyone. Yeah. And you're like, whoa, I get it. Yeah. Like, that's it. That's all you need. But we thought that there was a lot more when we did our series. We wanted to homage John Wick and pay tribute to that, but also create our own story. And so past the initial, even like the first issue, you start to see the story sort of shifts away from just this like revenge story into now, there's like 6 volumes of this planned. So it's, the first, it starts out as like a very Wick-esque homage, but it very quickly turns into, in my opinion, something much bigger than John Wick.
It does. It turns into something much bigger, and especially when we get to volume 2, It's absolutely its own thing. We'll still have the Wickisms in there.
Yeah.
We'll call them.
Yeah.
But it's its own thing.
Yeah.
It's absolutely its own story. And everybody will meet the best character in the series in volume 2.
Oh, okay. And then how many, now, for our listeners, how many issues is in each volume right now?
So volume 1 is 3 issues.
Mm-hmm.
We only did 3 because we were like unsure about how well the series would do, and if there was, when we first signed up and signed to the series, with SourcePoint, like we weren't really sure if we needed to fill 4 issues.
Mm-hmm.
We later regretted it because we were like, oh my god, we could have easily done 4.
Yeah.
So the first volume is 3 issues. Every volume after that is 4 issues apiece.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, this first volume, I know it was a Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the second volume. I'm just asked. This is an off-the-cuff question. Is this going to be a Kickstarter, or is this?
Yeah, we'll have the Kickstarter for volume 2 will be in February, and that'll be the next basic. Like the Kickstarter is essentially get you the entire series. So like people that backed the Kickstarter, even though number 1 just came out in stores, the people from the Kickstarter got the whole series delivered to them. So they got they got their number 1 late, but they got the whole series early. Because we had to like wait to produce them. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm going to jump around a little bit. So correct me if I'm wrong. The kicks in your guys, that first Kickstarter you guys did, it had a 2-page. There was a stretch goal that you guys reached. I think the $24,000 stretch goal that had a 2-page story by Tony Fleece and Trish Forster, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, the co-creators of Stray Dogs.
Yes. Yeah.
I was trying
And
to see if I had it.
So good. It's so funny. We also have a 2-page story in there that David Boer wrote.
With Alex Moore.
Yeah, with Alex Moore art, which is also hilarious.
David Boer writes Canto, and he did Killer Queens for Dark Horse, and
he does Serenity.
Tons of stuff. Yeah, he's doing Serenity River Run right now for Firefly. We had, like very early on when we were working on Good Boy, we sort of like happened upon this like fan base that Stray Dogs, because Stray Dogs was so popular at the time. It still is, but it had just come out and it was really, really big. And we, Christy and I both liked that book, and we were like, hey, it'd be funny if we invited Trish. Like we kind of met Trish.
Yeah, Trish came to us actually.
Yeah, and we were like, yeah, we would love to have you do something on the book, because it's so cool that you do all this, Stray Dogs is so big, and you obviously do dog books as well. Like that's, that'd be great. And then it's sort of like that was a slingshot into like people there was a Facebook group that was dedicated to Stray Dogs fans. And the guy who runs it put a poll in the group. He was like, hey, has anyone seen this other book? Like there's this other book, Good Boy. Trish is even doing something on this, like whatever. Would you guys want to have some Good Boy stuff in this group? And everyone was like, holy shit, yeah. So then this group got sort of co-branded into Good Boy and Stray Dogs.
Yep.
And there's like 900 people in it. And it just like, all those people started sharing variants, and then they were back in the Kickstarter and they were talking about the books. And it just like, it was like, we took a hook and just like threw it under this train that was Stray Dogs, and we just boom,
we just went right with it.
And so when it came time to do stretch goals, we were like, man, it'd be really funny is if we got a backup story done by Tony and Trish. But I don't know if they would do that or whatever. And I asked Trish, and Trish was like, totally, we're in. They did a backup story, and then David Boer and them did it. Like it was so good. Like the idea was we wanted to do these little 2-page shorts that were like slice of life things around like John and Flint before John died, like back when they were at their peak of like working.
Yeah, you don't really see much of John in the book.
Yeah, well, you see a lot of him all over the place in the very beginning, but
that is very true.
Yeah, you don't see sort of the life they had together before he died.
Yeah, you learn that he's like a really good guy. He's funny. That they have a really good relationship.
Yeah.
So it's sweet. It's one of the sweet.
So those backup stories were meant to be like sort of a sweet, like after you get done with the brutality of the
Yes.
book, then you're like, oh, look how cute. Like they're going to the vet and they're going on like a mission and they're going like doing like these things. Like, so it was really fun.
I'm sorry, Garrett, that was kind of funny when you said, you know, it's like you get the slice of life, like how cute that they're going on a vet, and look how cute they're going to go on a mission. You know, it's like,
yeah.
You know,
yeah, but it's like it's very like buddy cop-esque. Like their relationship is sort of like, it's just very unique. Like the way they their job is to kill people, but they're sort of like, they're like really grounded about it. Like they just, to them, it's just normal. And like, we're like one of the backup stories was, you know, when we had the ideas of like what to do, because we gave the writing teams what the backup story was. Like, here's the premise. You can do whatever you want. Here's the premise. And the one we gave to Tony and Trish was, we want them to have an argument over what goes best with peanut butter. And so, and I had this funny line that I had come up with that, like, I didn't care what any of the story was. I was like, I just think it'd be funny at the end if he says, well, obviously peanut butter and chocolate's the best. Mm-hmm. And he's like, you son of a bitch, you know I can't have chocolate. And so we gave that to Tony and Trish, and they just fucking ran with it. And they did this whole story. But like, it feels, and like at the end, they're like pulling ski masks on, like grabbing guns. And he's like, we're going to fucking talk about this later. Like, this isn't over. And they like go off to do all this like shit. It's just,
go off to kill their people. And
like, you forget that they're killers because you're so wrapped up in like this funny moment between two friends. So, yeah.
Couple things I just want to say is that for our listeners, you know, that when we refer to John is the human in the story, and Flint Sparks is the dog, anamorphic dog. Before I continue on with my questions, I'm just asking, like, for these 2-page backup stories, will regular comic shop readers be able to see these stories? Is it included in the monthly issues, or
it is only included in the Kickstarter number ones, as something to like sort of keep it special in the single issues to backers of the Kickstarter. It will likely be printed when we do like the omnibus of like the first volume, or potentially we thought about saving it until we have, you know, like all 3 volumes done or something, and then adding in all the shorts from the different ones into that, because we wanted to keep it sort of as something special for the people that obviously supported the Kickstarter so much.
That sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Do you guys want to give a shout out to your creative team?
Oh my gosh.
No, they suck. They don't deserve anything. They're nothing
Everybody
without
but
us.
Dave.
Yeah. No. Kit Wallace, our interior artist, cover artist, best friend, art extraordinaire, is hands down one of my top 3 artists of all time. He's an incredible talent. He's a brilliant artist. Like, it makes no sense how good he is.
Yes, he's a brilliant artist, but he is also such a brilliant storyteller.
He is.
It's like you can just say, "This, we want this kind of to happen," and then he gives us something that is just makes our jaws drop. He's brilliant. Everybody else just stay away from him because he's hard. He's absolutely brilliant. And Dave, our letterer, is
Dave is incredible.
He's much more than just a letterer. He doesn't just like, I mean, he yells at me for writing too much, but that's okay. But seriously, this team the book would be a completely different book if you took out any one of us. You know,
absolutely.
It was, because it really is, this is exactly what a comic book should be.
You know, like the crazy thing is that, like, it's been my dream, like, since I was like a kid. Like, I've always wondered, like, because when I was younger and reading comics, I always thought, like, man, the bullpen is like such a cool, like, it's such an awesome thing. Like, this idea that you have these creatives in this space together, just making magnificent things. And I mean, that isn't a thing anymore. Like there is no bullpen anymore. Like that's not a thing that exists. So, like, you know, the way that I write, like, somebody told me once, they were like, Garrett is the Marvel method of Marvel method. Like, I hate formatting. it's like but I know that about myself. Like my brain, if I have to think about, like, if I have to sit and go page 1, panel 1, establishing shot, interior, this, like, it kills my creativity. Like it makes me not want to write any books because I'm just like, this is fucking awful. And so like my idea, my approach has always been like, get the stuff on the page. Like I don't care about the panel structure. I care about what's happening on the page, what's being said, like the actions and stuff like that. And through the journey that I've sort of taken in comics, I've found that there are artists that hate that so much because they want to be told what to draw, they want to get paid, and they want me to fuck off. And then there's artists that take that and they're like, oh, this is cool. I can do whatever I want.
Yes.
And so I've gravitated towards artists like that. I had that with Nick Turris, who worked on Franklin and Ghost and Fear Diaries and a bunch of other stuff with me. And now Kit will take a page that it'll be nothing on the page, but just a description for me that goes like, I really want, like, we had this in a book we're working on right now, Christmas Caroline, where I told him, I said, look, in the script, I said, listen, Kit, I want a double page spread of just like, she just needs to look super badass, and she needs to be like surfing on like sort of like a Christmas inspired Bifrost to the North Pole. That's all I said to him. And he comes back with this double page thing that it's probably the most beautiful page I've ever seen in comic. It's so crazy and detailed and insane, and it was perfect. Perfect. And like he does that with every page. Every page, it's like, here's what, the action starts. These are the things that have to happen, and these are the people that are talking to each other, and this is what they're saying.
In fact, especially in Christmas Caroline, there are a couple times when I was just like, where he's so fast.
Yeah.
So, we're like, here are the bones, and he'll draw, and it's just like, okay, I'll just take these pages. Now I'm going to write the dialogue for him.
Yeah.
Which is exactly the Marvel method.
Yeah.
Just because he's just so good. And I mean, I would change things to like, okay, like the teddy bear
thing, to fit his art, like
it's like, okay, we'll just do it this instead of this, and he makes everything better. He is brilliant.
And Dave's the same way. It's like that idea that Christy and I can just be like, look, here's the story we want to tell. Here you go. Like those two take our script and just turn it into something completely different. Like it becomes this whole other thing. Like I don't even understand it sometimes.
So I can't remember who it was, but somebody came up to me and said, how do you deal with Garrett scripts? And I was like, and I said, I don't know what you mean. And they're like, they just make no sense. I said, they make perfect sense. They're absolutely logical. I mean, I'm like, I'm not understanding. I'm just like,
it's like beats. Like I write in beats. Like that's it.
And I get it, because even you at the very beginning, you were like, okay, I'm almost afraid to send this to you.
Yeah. Well, I told her, I'm like, look, you're gonna look at the script. I gave it to another writer friend one time, and he was like, this makes me want to throw up. Like there's no structure. And I was like, what do you mean there is structure? It's page 1, here's the actions and dialogue. That is a structure. Like I'm telling you what has to go on the page. I'm just letting the artist interpret how he wants to portray these things. And I told her right from the very beginning, I was like, I'm warning you, the way I write books is not the way people write comics. And she was like, how bad can it be? And then I sent it to her and she was like, oh, this is very different. And it was her nice way of saying it was a fucking mess. No, it wasn't. But it makes the best books.
It does. My opinion. It's a brain dump, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
I speak Garrett. So,
So Christy, it's an off the cuff question, but a couple things. I just want to preface the question. It sounds like you and Garrett are in sync. Do you kind of like balance out Garrett's Marvel method madness?
A little bit. I'm not as organized as people may think I am. But yeah, I think that we I think we work really well together. I think I don't know what it is, Garrett. Do you? That we just it's
I
just
think
I get him and he
Yeah.
gets me, and it's like I know my faults and I know where my weaknesses are, and Garrett really doesn't have any, but
yes, I do, because that's why
Um,
Christy writes all the fucking like important dramatic shit. I think that like the reason we work well, like Christy doesn't, I wouldn't say that Christy like balances it out. I think that she is very good at finding the parts that I need to improve.
Mhm.
And like she will say like she won't mess with anything, but she'll hone in on specific things.
Mhm.
And she'll be like, this needs to be like this.
Mhm.
And I'll be like, okay, sure. And it's like she finds the right parts. Like it's just all these fucking gears just like all over the place, and she's just like, this one goes here
Mhm.
and this one here, go.
Yeah.
And that's it. Like she's really good at just like picking out my faults
Mhm.
and like refining them. I'm not saying pick out my faults, like I'm saying like at seeing the weak points in the structure and
Mhm.
being like, okay, these need to be reinforced before the whole thing falls down. And it's great. She also doesn't like hinder me at all. Like she doesn't like, I had a very strict rule. In fact, Dave Lentz and I just had this conversation yesterday. He yelled at me on the phone because when we first met, he pitched me co-writing a book with him. And I said, look, I don't write with people. Like I don't write with anybody. I'm not interested in that or whatever, because at the time, like I know that my scripts are weird and like I don't need to bring anybody else into that. Or I also don't want I worked with somebody one time when I first started, and I was so motivated and I was so like inspired, and I was just going, and like everything I said, they were like, yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but and I got to a point where I was like, I don't even want to do this book anymore. This is so like every time I start to get momentum, it just gets dragged down by like having to ask this person's opinion or listen to like their thought on whatever. And it just happens that like Christy is very like you said, in sync with like my insanity. And she just like lets it go. And it's really like, it's just like a lot of the times I'm like, tell people I'm like the juggernaut.
Yeah.
And I'm just running through walls of concrete. And she's coming behind with the broom, and it's just like getting the rubble and just making sure it's not too bad. And like, it's perfect. It's amazing. I would have lost my mind if it wasn't for her. So.
You're so sweet, Garrett. It just does. It just works. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But it works really well, and it just seems like, I don't know, it just seems right.
She's also not afraid to call me on my shit.
That's
and cool. I'm also not afraid to call her on her shit.
That is also very true.
Yeah. Like, so like she talks about like she knows her faults. Like I also know I'm a big believer in like the way my brain works is like, if you're not adding anything to a situation, like if you're just in something to take away and not to bring to, like there's no point in that thing existing. And like, I know where I fit into this little mold of the Christy Garrett team. And I know the parts of me that don't fit in there. Like I am not a dramatic writer. Like I am not very good at like, incredibly long heartfelt moments and like speeches and shit like that. And I will write into scripts when we do stuff. I will literally just put highlighted parts and I go, Christy's part.
Oh.
It'll be a big, I'll make some big build up like we just did in Christmas Caroline. The guy's like getting on the thing and he's like, we're tearing this whole motherfucker down. I'm like, all this big build up. And then it's just like the script just hits Spartan and just goes, here you go, Christy. Make something magical. And she does. She comes in and she's like, just hits it out of the park. And I'm like, see, that's it. She's
what was it in Postmasters, which we do have a Kickstarter going on right now, postmasterscomic.com.
Don't get ahead of his schedule, Christy.
Yes,
I know, I'm just mentioning it. What was it when you wrote explain the breakdown.
Oh, explain it. Yeah, I said write something nice about like the fall of humanity or like the fall of civilization or something like that.
Yeah, in 2 pages.
In 2 pages. Yeah. Yeah. I said I really like, because what I do is I never like to tell her what to do. Yeah. So I put the 2 pages, and then I said, Christy, if you could use this 2 pages to explain, you know, how the world has ended and like society has sort of like just devolved into this awful shit. Thanks. Like that's it.
Thanks.
And she was just like, what? 2 pages? And it was so good. She did so good. It was so good. Like I knew it was the pressure she needed to succeed.
I do need pressure.
Yeah.
I do work better under pressure.
So this is
that's why I won't stop procrastinating, is because I'm so good at it. Don't quit what you're good at.
So this is the perfect segue, because I'm going to slowly start wrapping this up. Can you mentioned, or Christy, you already mentioned Postmasters is a Kickstarter campaign that's going on right now. Yes. So Christy, can I ask, can you tell our listeners what's the story about? And I'm going to be honest, I don't even know when we're going to have this release, wide release. I don't know if the campaign will be ended or anything like that. So, but can you go ahead and tell our listeners what the premise is about?
Yeah, well, Garrett and I will both tell you, because it was a Garrett thing, that you worked as a postman for a little while and realized
a very short while.
So it's kind of like, so if COVID had, well, I know it's still around, but if it had really taken a bad turn and
even worse than the hundreds of thousands of people who have died.
Yeah, worse than it is. I kind of liken it to the end of World's End, the amazing Edgar Wright movie, and where it's like there's no technology left. It's like everything has just, society is broken down, everything is broken down, people have mutated, and there's certain areas that are like the no-go zones, and then you have these other areas. But what keeps going? The post office.
The mail never stops.
The mail never stops. But they're just not regular postmen and women. They are badasses. They carry swords, and they are
government issued swords.
Government issued swords. Yeah. And there aren't that many left of them. And so it is about the mail and his adventures. I don't want to give too much away. There's a really terrible movie with Kevin Costner, The Postman, that came out, and it's sort of the Postman meets Resident Evil. Like it's follows Postmaster 32, who's they only have numbers. They don't have names.
Yeah, they only have numbers, because it's sort of like they swear an oath to the postmaster, and they become sort of like, they give up their identity, and it becomes like this sort of sacred duty to deliver the mail. And also because there's a lot of danger in it, and they have this other identity, so that it kind of like gets away from people being able to know where they come from or who they're related to, or have any sort of like stuff over them. And it follows 32, who's assigned to this distribution center here in California, and a mysterious letter comes in that like is very different from like anything that they've seen in so long. And 32 gets assigned to deliver this letter to another distribution center in Bend, Oregon, and on foot he has to sort of go on this journey to deliver this mail, because now it's sort of, the world is sort of like reverted back to sort of like the Pony Express. Like the mail still has to be delivered, no matter how many letter carriers die. The mail still has to go. So what happens is that over time, those routes sort of, the less mail carriers are, your routes expand, and now you have like postmasters that are in charge of on foot delivering stuff across half a state.
Yes.
And so mail takes forever to get there because it's all hand delivered, and it's this whole crazy thing. But yeah, it's just so much fun. I worked for about a month and a half during COVID at the Postal Service. And it was the worst job I've ever had. Like I read about it in the Kickstarter, which wherever you guys are, postmasterscomic.com, you can go to the campaign. It's live for like another 2 weeks from today. I write about like the interactions that I like witnessed between like the public and the workers there, let alone like you add on top of that a pandemic and like all these other things that these like people are still there working 80 hours a week and like doing all these jobs and like interacting with all these people that do not give a single fuck that like the mail is backed up and people are working until like their fingers bleed. Like they're just like mad their Amazon package isn't there yet because like fuck you guys, what are you guys doing? And so I wrote this book as like, the other thing is that I live in an area that's heavily filled with anti-vaxxers and anti-maskers and a lot of stuff. And so that's another added layer of this thing where you have this pandemic and you have these workers that were trying to be safe and we're trying to do their job, and we're trying to do whatever. And there's this like added level of danger of people being sick and people dying and like all this stuff. So I wanted to write this book that was sort of like this idea of like, what if COVID had destroyed the world? Like, what if, as terrible as it's been already, what if it was even worse?
Yes.
And what if 70% of the world population died to COVID? And now there's, 23 postmasters for the entire United States delivering all the mail. And, what does that look like? What does the world look like? What are these people that refuse to get vaccinated? What have they become? And like, what are they, what is everything? It was all these pieces. So out of that came Postmasters. And again, I'm not the dramatic writer. So I was like, oh, I have a stupid idea. I'm going to do something fun and do all this stuff. And then when there comes time for parts that need serious writers, Christy will be there to save me.
I come to save the day.
Yep.
So Christy, I'm going to ask you the question. So now listeners, today is November 29th. As Garrett mentioned, 2 weeks from now, I think will be like something like December 12th or something. The campaign will end. But will this be, do you guys already have a publisher lined up or anything?
Yes, it'll be Source Point Press.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we've actually already hit our goal. The campaign is made, but we're going for some stretch goals. We like shiny things, so we want more shiny on the books. And there's a $30 level that you can get that comes with his gold ID card. It's not real gold. It's gold, but it's not like real gold. Which Garrett and I both love, like little, I don't know, tchotchkes, I want to say, knickknacks, those metal tart covers. So we like that, and we think that they're fun. And we did that with Good Boy, with the favors. We did that with the New York Comic Con exclusive, with the key card. We did that with Four Color Fiends, our company. We do a lot of different exclusives. 4colorfiends.com. Please check us out. We had a fiend coin. So I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that we do, and so I think that it's a great campaign. The book is beautiful. Ruben is doing a great job. Dave, of course, is back with us on lettering, and again, he does more than letter. And he also keeps us both in line a little bit. When
It's true.
He's like, you need to look at this now, and we're like, okay. And then like an hour later, I said now, okay. We both just got yelled at earlier today.
Yeah.
But he does keep us in line. But yeah, we've got a lot of stuff going on. That's Christmas Caroline is in preview right now. Christmas Caroline is so good. We both just read the final
build,
PDF, and it's I mean I love it so much. It's so good. So we've got Christmas Caroline, we've got Postmasters, we've got some more stuff going with C2E2, which is in a couple weeks. We have a Blind Justice special ash can that is going to be there. Blind Justice is our
The
take
Adventures of Blind Justice and Friends.
The Adventures
That's
of Blind Justice and Friends.
Yeah.
So kind of our take on Golden Age superheroes, Silver Age superheroes, all of that, and I'm Blind Justice.
Yeah.
It's brilliant, and that's great. And then we've got, what else are we working on?
Wheat Gods. We've got, there's a bajillion things.
I know, it's just like there's so much. We're actually working on Mysterium together based on the board game.
She's working on it. I'm just overseeing. I just sit back and go, oh, this is the deadline. That's all it is.
But and then it's there's a lot going on. You've got the pterosaurs.
Yeah. Little Red Ronin comes out in spring.
Oh my gosh, Little Red. Oh, you forgot We Eat Gods.
I said We Eat Gods.
Did you?
Yeah,
when?
I just said it. You're like, what else? I was like, well, we have We Eat Gods.
Oh.
She doesn't know.
I don't listen to you.
The big one is that Christmas Caroline. Everyone should go out.
Yes.
Everyone
this month.
Christmas Caroline.
And buy Christmas Caroline. Order it from your local comic shop.
It's in previews right now. 2 great big pages of it. It's beautiful. It's so much fun.
It follows a disavowed elf who's seeking the revenge for the murder of her brother at the hands of Saint Nick. Yeah. Her brother sort of tries to unionize the workshop, tries to get better working conditions and stuff, living conditions for the elves that work in the workshop. And Santa's sort of under this he has these like corporate overlords that sort of like control all the holidays and are like, you're slipping in ratings. You need to get your shit together, get this fucking workshop going. Like you guys are behind on production and like this and that. And he sort of like kills this dude to set an example for like, I don't give a fuck about any, like you guys need to do your job. And then he exiles this guy's family, which includes his sister Caroline. And now she's trying to find a way back to the North Pole so she can murder Santa. It's a lot of fun. And it's an annual, so it comes out every Christmas. So it's a 32-page king-size annual that comes out every Christmas.
Well, and I guess we should mention on Postmasters that it is also not just a regular-sized comic book.
Yeah, Postmasters is a magazine-sized 48-page book.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
And it's going to be a 2-part book. So book 1 is the one that's on Kickstarter right now. It's called Live by the Letter. And then part 2 is Die by the Blade. And that's they're both going to be magazine-sized 48-page books.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Really, really beautiful.
I see Jason's like wheels turning. He's like, oh my God.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yes, it sounds great, and the format and everything sounds great. Okay, so I'm gonna start wrapping things up. Couple more questions. Have you guys been to Hawaii?
Yes. No. I lived in Hawaii for a number of years. It was awesome. I miss it very, very much. Some of the like best friendships and like things that I made were in Hawaii. People I still talk to this day that I met there.
That's nice.
Yeah.
We need to have them invite us to the Hawaii Comic Con.
Yes.
What's funny is when I was in, it's such an odd, like random story. When I was stationed in Hawaii, because the reason I was there, people that know me know I was in the Army and I was stationed at Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. 500th MI, what up? So when I was stationed there, I was listening to the radio one day and I hear this ad. It's like for some, like it's like the collector's swap meet in Honolulu or something. And they go, with special guest, Wolverine co-creator, Herb Trimp. And I went, what? And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I thought I didn't hear it right. And so then I kept the radio on all day to wait to hear the ad again. And sure enough, I hear it and it's like, Herb Trimp's going to be at this thing. And I was like, holy crap. So I tell my wife, like my son is named after Wolverine. And I'm like freaking out. I'm like, oh my God. And so we go down the day of the show and it's like this swap meet, like, and there's like nobody there. It's like dead. Like there's, I mean, it's not dead, but it's like, you know, it wasn't like, I was expecting like Comic-Con.
Yes.
Like I was expecting like these crazy lines. I show up super early to get in line.
Yes.
And there's like nobody there. I walk in, I'm like, at this point, I'm still like, maybe I misheard what is going on. I don't understand. And I look down and I see this big Wolverine banner and I'm like, oh my God. And he's standing in front of the booth. There's only one other guy at the booth. They're talking. And like, I just walk up and I'm like holding all my books and I'm just like, oh my God. Like what is happening? Nobody's there. There's all these prints on the table, like these giant Hulk 181 prints and all this stuff. And it's his wife is there. And his wife is like helping him. And I start talking to her. She's like, hey, how's it going? I'm like, oh my God. And she like helps me. I'm like, I want to buy some like autographs. Like, here's the books I want signed, whatever. And then this other guy leaves. And then it's just me and my wife and my 2-year-old, and then him and his wife. And I was just like, sir, I love you. Like, it was this whole thing. I was like, my son is named after Wolverine. Like this, I'm just like, first fanboy moment, like huge, just like I'm just like verbally just spilling everything. And he was so nice. We hung out for like 45 minutes. He signed all my books. He took a picture holding my kid.
Aww.
Like it was this whole thing. And then at the end, he was like, you know, I brought special art for this show. And I didn't know how many people would be here or whatever. He was like, but I'm doing this giveaway. Like everybody that bought an autograph gets a ticket to like win one of these things. And it's a print of Wolverine and Hulk in Hawaiian shirts going at it. And he's like, you look like an idiot. Like, and he's like, we got to do this for the show. Like all this shit. And he was like, it was only me and one other guy that had bought stuff from the table. And he was like, don't tell anyone. He was like, he gave each of us one. And he was like, thank you for coming. Like whatever. And I was like, holy shit. It was huge. It was crazy. So it's like 2 Garrett from Wolverine and Hulk, you know, like whatever, you know, Herb Trimp. And it's insane. It was crazy. I'd never understood like that moment. And like 3 days later, he passed away.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like 3 days later. And I was like, holy crap. Like it was the weirdest, like most by chance thing ever. And ever since then, this has nothing to do with Honolulu or like Hawaii Comic-Con. I derailed this whole thing. But that now is like, I'll come back to Hawaii for any show just for the random chance at another interaction like that.
Yeah.
Because it was incredible.
I know which one you're talking about.
Really?
Because I worked that Saturday because I still have my G.I. Joe #1.
Oh my God.
I know. And I was like, oh shoot. But
it was crazy. I couldn't believe it.
Oh, but man, that is so cool.
Yeah, it was nuts. And for a fan, like, it's like, you know, like never meet your heroes, like all this kind of shit. Like I've had some terrible interactions with famous comic creators that I love that have just like maybe never want to buy anything from them ever again. At that moment, he could not have been more perfect of a human being in that moment. That like in the pantheon of comic creators, in my mind, it was just like an instant seal, like done. This dude's perfect. Everything he makes is perfect. His wife is perfect. This whole day is perfect. It was crazy. I couldn't believe that happened. Yeah.
Because you're kind of going, I'm in Hawaii. What are my chances of meeting Herb Trimpe?
Yeah.
Not on the mainland where it's San Diego.
Yeah.
It's
exactly. It seems so obscure.
Yeah.
And he was like, he made some joke when he was there, like, oh, well, you know, we were coming to Hawaii for vacation and they like offered to like pay for our stay. So of course I'm going to do it. And I was like, hell yes, you are. That's fucking awesome. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay. So Christy, I'm going to ask, can you top that?
Christy knows awesome people. Are you kidding me? She told you she got Stan Lee to shoot a fucking video for her class.
No. Can she top that? You know, I'm Christy, I'm joking. You know I'm joking. But I know you haven't been to Hawaii. But
I have not been to Hawaii. I've got my customers in Hawaii. And I know all the words to Melikamiki Maka.
Melikamiki Maka.
It's the thing to say. Let's see. No, Hawaii stories, I don't think I can top that, Garrett.
You're welcome.
I think you win Hawaii.
Yeah. Suck it.
So
well, actually,
all right.
Christy and Garrett, I think hopefully we have one of the local comic book convention people, organizers listening to this, and hopefully they'll invite you guys.
Invite us.
Or
we will.
Christy.
Listen, I would sell an organ to get some killer tacos because it is the best place I've ever got food from ever in my life. In North Shore, Oahu, there's a place, there's a little taco stand place called Killer Tacos. And they sell fish tacos that are insane. Oh. And almost every weekend we would go to North Shore and we'd go snorkeling and whatever. And then we would buy a bag of, they're $2 a piece, and fish tacos. Like, we'd just fill a bag with them and come home. My wife and I would just, oh my God. Yeah. Amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay. Sorry. So let me start wrapping things up. Where can listeners follow you on social media?
I am at Christy Blanch on Twitter and Instagram, which I'm terrible at, and Christina Blanch on Facebook. You can find as always at All Yeah Comics. We're the All Yeah Comics in Muncie, or What We Do in the Comic Shop. Pretty easy to find.
Garrett? Mine, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everything at Some Writer Guy. I also have a Patreon, patreon.com/somewriterguy. You can get like monthly exclusive variants and medals and all kinds of cool stuff.
It's so good. I'm a patron of Garrett's because I'm just such a fan of his work.
I've got her fooled.
Any closing words to our listeners?
You should buy Good Boy. It's by far the thing I'm most proud of. And
it is.
It's the most accessible, fun, ridiculous story I've ever made. And I think that everybody that reads it sees how much fun we had writing it. And you won't be disappointed. At least nobody has been yet.
Nobody has been yet, or they haven't told us.
Yeah, it's true.
I did read a review where it said, this is exactly what a comic should be. And that made me smile ear to ear, because this is exactly what I think a comic should be. Not that I don't like, I wrote Charlie Wormwood. It's very deep and dark and, has lots of layers to it. But yes, get Good Boy. It's absolute 100% fun. Go check out postmasterscomic.com and pre-order Christmas Caroline, because it is also just wonderful fun. And even if you just don't read the words, just looking at Kit's art, and that is, it seriously almost brought me to tears a couple times because I loved it so much. And then there's some little things that he puts in there that just kill me. And I'm like, wait, we didn't put, Kit.
That's not in the script. Yeah, Kitisms.
Brilliant.
Yep. Yeah.
I guess that's it.
Oh, sorry. So Garrett and Christy, I want to wish you guys all the success with Good Boy, Postmaster, and Christmas Caroline, and your other works that you guys are going to have coming out in 2022. So yes. And I want to say mahalo. Thank you, and Hawaiian. Thank you guys for your time. I know I told you guys at the beginning we'll just keep this to an hour, and I'm sorry we went over. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview you guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Thank you. And then I also want to give a big shout out to Josh of Source Point Press. Josh, thank you for help setting up this interview. Thank you very much. And if you are a new reader or a lifelong reader, please check out Good Boy. Issue number 1 is currently in your LCS right now. Issue number 2 is going to come out on December 29th, and the previous code is OCT211758. And if you're interested in Christmas Caroline, please let your LCS know to order you a copy. So please do that. I want to thank, Drew, the Coles for Comics for Fun and Profit, for putting this episode together. So Drew, thank you very much for all your hard work behind the scenes. And if you are a new listener, please check out new episodes of Comics for Fun and Profit that comes out every Saturday. And finally, I want to thank you, the listeners. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for listening to this episode. Until next time, guys, aloha.